This is Practical Pivots, the podcast for startup leaders, founders, and investors asking, what do we do next? Join me for sharp conversations with an eclectic ensemble of experts to guide companies to disrupt the undisruptible, turn setbacks into scale-ups, and transform plateaus into pivots. Today, I'm joined by Hunter Albright, someone who spent his career operating at the crossroads of technology, business strategy, and human behavior. Hunter is a savvy startup exec and product leader who started his career with a PhD in AI, long before AI became the tidal wave it is today. He's also someone I've had the privilege of working with firsthand. And what's always struck me is how quickly he can enter a company, cut through the complexity, and identify where the real momentum lives. In this conversation, we talk about how Hunter evaluates early-stage businesses, his frameworks for unlocking growth, what still surprises him about AI, and what makes product ideas stick or stall. If you've ever had to reboot, reframe, or restart your way toward growth, this one's for you. Here's my conversation with Hunter Albright. Hunter Albright, welcome to Practical Pivots.
Steve, it's great to be here.
How did it take so long to get you here?
I know, it's been a while, not that far down the road.
All right, I'm jumping right in. You earned a PhD in AI, or what we used to, or something like AI, before it was sexy. Why did you enter the field back when you did?
Yeah, so my background, I definitely have had a non-traditional background, both in terms of getting into startups as well as sort of technology. So I was a senior in college and was working with a professor on an eye tracker. So we had developed a technology that allowed people to basically have an ocular interface with the computer and control the computer with your eyes. And so I was really excited about that startup. And so that was my first company I co-founded when I was a senior in college. And I stayed to get my PhD because we were trying to get this small company off the ground. And so it just happened along the way that I got pulled in to do what is now referred to as AI. My research was in particular in genetic algorithms for optimization problems and doing a lot of the math. And I went into finance after that. I left, so once I finished up my PhD, went into consumer lending, both on the credit card and loan side, about how to use those models for direct marketing, for underwriting, for pricing, really from a forecasting, prediction, and optimization perspective.
So what surprises you about how all of this turned out?
Well, what's been amazing to watch is, and it still sort of boggles my mind, a lot of the fundamental algorithms that are being used have not changed at all. And over sort of the last 2 decades, 2.5 decades, the things that have really started that moved the needle, one was the amount of data that started to be available. And that really, right, that's sort of the fuel for all of these sort of AI algorithms in terms of really sort of being able to get trained better and have more inputs in terms of having more accurate outputs or predictions. And then the second one that came along was the compute power. And so when I go back and I talk to people that are still writing the algorithms and building the tools, those have been the 2 levers that have dramatically changed how responsive sort of the AI is, as well as a little bit of the telecommunications, right? The fact that everything is real time, we can do it on our phones. We have that level of interactivity now with the models and the tools that are being used. I think for me, what was really unexpected and surprising and a lot of fun to then jump in and play with has both been the large language models and how that has sort of popularized AI, made AI much more accessible and probably more thought-provoking than a lot of the stuff that was already going on in the scene, work going on, but behind the scenes in terms of analyzing the next customer action or what marketing content would be done. Even going back when direct mail, we were using AI to formulate headlines, pick envelopes, pick design criteria, and that just continued to evolve as went through the different sort of digital evolutions of marketing and the content distribution.
What's most misunderstood about AI now that it is sexy?
I still think the most understood thing about AI is the fact that it is still a large system that is using the data to get trained. And it's just getting smarter, and it has more context because of both the data and the speed that it can process it. So it's not coming up with new thoughts in the way a human might be more creative, but it is starting to sort of, so when you think about sort of some of the math problems behind it, you'll have, there's a set of problems that are really sort of clustering problems, right? You're taking a whole bunch of data and you're trying to get it to relate. AI is great at doing that, right? It can be trained on data sets. It can go through a lot of data and start to say what is related much faster and better than we can at humans. And then once you have those clusters, it can do classification. So now I can say, using a picture, this person looks like fits into this group, right? A dog looks like a dog, or a cat looks like a cat. And so the ability to do that really quickly is fantastic. And then the other one is the forecasting, right? We can start to think about, hey, I have this historical trend of data, and now I can look forward and put some conditions on it to see where it can get. But really, it's still doing a lot of the fundamental, really basic math problems and equations to get to those results. We just have a lot more data we're able to pump into it, and a lot more compute power to get to that place. And I think especially one of the things that probably illustrates it really well is, the algorithms behind all of the image generation. Which I think really makes that come to life in terms of, because it keeps iterating through, different sort of basically predicting what the output should look like, and then error correcting it to make it better and better. And the fact that now is so fast and it can be done with video, like, I think that's, it is just sort of mind boggling in terms of the power and sort of the creativity of that technology. But it's still being designed and used in systems. And I think for the biggest thing, and I go in and sort of just to pull it back a little bit from sort of the fun and the sexy tools, is like when businesses are looking at how to apply AI, a lot of people jump in with the tools and they spend a lot of time. They may spend a lot of money trying to find a good fit. Oftentimes I find that that's because they just actually don't understand what their core process is in their business, and then understand where to plug in AI. At the end of the day, AI is just a tool. It has a bunch of great capabilities. But if you don't know the process that you want your employees to go through, or the processes that your employees are going through, but that you just don't know about, then it's hard to really figure out how to plug in AI most effectively for a business.
When you're consulting with your clients right now, or you're in your professor role with entrepreneurship students, what are some of the ways that you're guiding them to use AI, and maybe some specific examples of what they've done to bring it to life for us?
Yeah, so I think I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Colorado in Boulder in the business school, and been teaching sort of strategy and entrepreneurship for about 10 years there. And I think the last 2 years have been really exciting in terms of what it's meant in the classroom and what I think it's meant for entrepreneurs. And so for me, we've predominantly been using AI to just eliminate the excuse of a blank page, and really get people to have ideas that are going out and pitching it in the market. So, when I met the first company that I started, our big challenge wasn't selling to customers right away. It was much more about like, hey, we need to raise capital because we actually have to go build computers and build cameras and build these things that we needed for the interface. And the bet was that we would build it and then we'd be able to sell it. But I think now, the cost of entry has dropped so much from a technology perspective, in that, for my perspective on this, is that the barrier to entry is really getting out and talking to customers and starting to sell as quickly as possible. So for the entrepreneurs that go through sort of my classes, we jump in and we're like, I want them selling in week 1 or week 2. And we use AI to do more research on who their target audience is, what their messaging should be, and what should be an initial offer that they should get out and talk to people with. Because I have sort of evolved my thinking about sort of what's the best way to go to market. And especially for startup ideas, I'm definitely in the camp where I think, rather than thinking about it as an MVP, I like to think about it as an information product. And with AI, we can really rapidly design information products and go see if people will pay you for an hour of your time based on the research you've done. Will somebody pay to get into a workshop? Because if somebody really has a problem, they're probably willing to pay for the research just as much as they would be able to be willing to pay for the end product or service. And it's just, one, it's a lot of fun because it makes the classes very interactive. We don't waste a lot of time sort of nasal gazing and thinking about strategy, as opposed to like, just what's your hypothesis and go test it. and really try to get into that groove of how fast can you iterate to get feedback and then try something different. And I really think that AI has helped unlock that, because now there's no excuses. You get an input, you get a new piece of information, you should be able to have a new output being guided with your expertise and sort of the context that you have as a founder, that you have as an entrepreneur.
That's a perfect bridge to startup consulting and growth consulting with companies that are trying to figure out what to do and how to scale it, which is another huge part of what you do. You've worked across fintech, edtech, consumer products, and we worked even in environmental tech together for a wee bit. Where do you see the repeatable patterns in unlocking growth? And well, we'll get back into how AI fits into that in your new messaging.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the frameworks that I like, that's been, I think Alex Hormozy has sort of popularized it, is more, better, new. And so when thinking about growth, lean into what you're already doing and do more of it. One of the things that have found with a lot of businesses is that I think about building capability a lot like sort of weightlifting and sort of physical exercise, is that, you have to first build the habit so that you can be consistent. And so for a lot of businesses, I think figuring out how you're going to do your marketing, how you're going to do your sales, just to go out and engage with customers, just build that consistency and that foundational process. And then start to think about just how do you add capacity? Like, so how do you do more of what you're doing? And before you're maxing out the volume. And then once you feel like you've got more capacity, there's two benefits to that. I see you're probably starting to make sales just because of the volume that you're doing. But at the same time, now you have a lot of feedback. And now you probably have collected enough data where you can say, where is it appropriate to be more complex? Or where can I make things better? Where are the bottlenecks in the process that I'm trying to grow the business? So if you're looking at, like, how do you drive awareness, or how do you sort of have a better close rate in terms of converting sort of leads into customers, or even looking at how do I improve my onboarding process so then I have better retention rate. At that point in time, you've had enough reps to then be able to sort of probably have some better hypotheses about what to do next. So, first I come in and I think about sort of really it's on customers, or more, and then what can you do around more, better, new to get customers? And then the second place I tend to look is then say, how can you grow the customer lifetime value, the CLV? You've already invested a lot into people to get them in as customers. What can you do now to serve the other needs that they probably have, but you may or not have talked to them about?
So for those of us who haven't been in one of these strategic projects, you're coming in from the outside. These people have lived it. They've breathed it. This is their startup. They're looking for outside expertise for what the heck do we do now? How do we grow anything? Can you help us feel what it's like to be more tangible? Kind of like, what do you do in the first week, the first month, first 3 months, as you're trying to fix these giant problems from the outside?
Yeah, I mean, I think I try to be one as humble as possible, because at that point I feel like I'm a guide, I'm a coach at this point. That the answer is within a business. I mean, I haven't really worked with a business where the employees haven't known the right answer. They may have not known how to express it or to advocate for it. So a lot of what I do is just have a scorecard where I go in and try to help assess different elements of the business in terms of what are they doing to drive awareness, as an example. What are they doing to sort of then convert the interest into sales? And then what are they doing operationally to make sure they deliver value for their customers as quickly as possible? And just go get different perspectives, and then try to be a facilitator to just help unblock stuff that people see and give them some perspective on. I think a lot of businesses don't have great benchmarks, so they actually don't know what they're good at and also maybe where they're behind. And just a little bit of guidance in some of those areas can give businesses some confidence to invest more or to prioritize what they're doing. I would say the one thing I do see commonly when I go in is that businesses probably are trying to do too much rather than too little.
Yeah.
And getting them to focus and figure out what the right order of operations will be to drive growth oftentimes helps both improve the amount of growth that's achieved and the velocity that the growth is accomplished in.
It's amazing how simple that concept is. Most startups die because of indigestion and not because of starvation.
Yeah.
And yet when you're in it, it is so much harder to actually remember.
And that is true. I mean, it is. I think decision making is a lot easier to talk about than it is to actually execute. And that's because of us, our personalities and the people and the teams. But it is no doubt harder to make good decisions on a consistent basis. And I think the more you can try to reduce the number of decisions or speed up the cycle on smaller decisions, the better off you'll be.
Do you have some specific examples you can refer to of when you've come into companies and what you found, kind of what it looks like to them, maybe getting more of an inner feel for these examples?
Well, I think, one of the things, I would say I worked in sort of a tech company, and they were startups, successful, they were moving, but they weren't necessarily talking a lot in terms of collaborating across multiple departments. And so, especially now where a lot of companies are fully remote, I think the siloing of what the initiatives are, what the interpretation of the initiatives are, can be quite challenging. And so I think you just have to be intentional about how do you keep people on the same page. I think for executives, sometimes that feels like you're saying the same thing over and over. But I think it is needed to reinforce the direction, reinforce the decision-making criteria, and figure out what's the right amount of time to be bringing people together to make those decisions. And I think one of the things that, I'm a big fan of sort of the EOS system in terms of just sort of putting some structure around, okay, we're going to get together at these times to take this perspective and make decisions about what's for the next month, what's for the next quarter. And I found like if a company finds their own version of that they like, then that can add some calm to the chaos, because you don't have to worry about necessarily tracking everything. And you're going to get together to evaluate initiatives and then get to some level of prioritization that you want to tackle.
Sure, you don't want to go into new product development right now?
We can go wherever you want to go.
I feel it's time. I feel it blends really good.
Okay.
Before I take that direction, are there any areas you want to delve deeper into in the first two areas? I feel like we gave a good high level. I know that you can go a million miles deeper in any of the directions.
Well, I think the one thing I would say in terms of doing a lot of work. So I've done a lot of work in Colorado with sort of rural entrepreneurship, as well as through then the teaching, with the university. And I actually think it's a really exciting time to be an entrepreneur. AI is a huge enabler, in my opinion, in terms of taking away barriers about getting to a deeper, a more compelling sort of set of materials, set of questions, as well as then sort of product design. And one of the interesting trends that I've seen with a lot of the newer companies is a swing to companies that are using AI, but the end product is more analog. And that as people are using AI in businesses, as consumers, people are swinging away from digital products and services and wanting to get back to things that are more analog and face-to-face. And I think it's really interesting that the ideas that are coming up and the new businesses that are popping up that tap into that. So I had a company I worked with recently, and it was all about sort of renovating old 4x4s and learning the skills of how to work on your own truck. And they have built a business where they have a garage, and they bring in and host events and do training and do video and then do all the digital distribution more broadly around that. But it's a business that has a lot of AI happening in terms of how they're powering marketing, how they sort of got to their ideas, how they're sort of really trying to look for scale. But at the heart of it, it's an analog end service that's getting a lot of interest and attracting people into a face-to-face environment for some of that connection and experience.
That is a fascinating move. That is just completely unexpected. Let's end with more of a predictions and what you expect to see in AI and how you expect to be both what you expect AI to enable you to do and what you expect to be consulting your companies and your students on with AI 3 to 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things. So one of the tools that I really like and I'm playing around with a lot is a tool called Lindy AI. And it is a platform that allows you to essentially automate AI tools and tasks. And so, and I think that's a great opportunity to just start to get through a lot more information, to start to figure out how to build processes, whether it's processing your inbox, whether it's creating a long form piece of content, or even automatically then converting that long form piece of content in multiple posts. I think the opportunity for people is to use AI for research and synthesis, but to really now be looking for those nuggets of ideas that you can put your own twist on, and deliver them in a way that is really more you or your business and doesn't end up feeling like AI. Because there was a great sort of examples. I heard on a podcast talking about it. It's like, if you give 1,000 people AI to write a book, everybody can write a book, but it's going to be the person that really knows how to do the editing, and be sort of how to structure the writing, how to edit it, how to structure the story, and to iterate on it will still produce the best book. Everybody will just do it faster. And so I think people still need to find ways to use their expertise to direct AI in a way that is uniquely them, and in a way that sort of brings the tools in line and in conjunction with their expertise, so that they can get their own magic out in the world in whatever form they want it.
Hunter, who are the people that you follow to stay on top of startup growth, to stay on top of AI, or any other thinkers that we should be following as well?
So I think Greg Eisenberg, I really like sort of the startup podcast he does in terms of looking at how to use tools. Sort of it's an innovative approach, and I think it gets you thinking differently about what is possible. I think, Anthropic and OpenAI provide great resources for people just to start to go learn more about AI and sort of understand what they're teaching and how people can start to plug it in. And then, I listen and watch a lot of sort of Alec Hormozy's sort of YouTube videos and podcasts. I think he talks about sort of business startups in a really practical way about how to drive value and not overthink it, and really sort of get into engaging with customers and selling, or some of the ones that come to mind off the top of my head.
Perfect. Hunter Albright, my friend, thanks so much for being on Practical Pivots.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Steve.